Hi, Bob Bartlett here with the Ubuntu Fly Anglers Network and iFishiBelong. And this is our podcast series on the reel, and I am your host. This conversation was recorded in 2024 on Instagram, but way too important to only live there. So we have moved this episode and others like it to our podcast. In this episode, Colorado ranch hand, fly fishing guide, horse and rider trainer, and lead wrangler for Wonderland Outdoors, Emma Brown, talks about the challenges of growing up and living the outdoor life as a brown person and her love for horses, cows, and fly fishing. So please listen to this episode of podcast series On the Reel, REAL. Let's kick this puppy off. Let's talk a love for horses, cows, fly fishing with my friend Emma Brown. Emma is a fly fishing guide and outfitter, horse and rider trainer, and business owner on Colorado's Front Range. So hi, Emma. Hold on just a second. Let me change hats here. Hold on. Hey.
I love it.
So,
it's so fitting.
Emma and I have talked about our shared experience with ranch life, so I thought I had to dust this bad boy off. It was back in the closet. It still fits. So, Emma, you're up. So you're up. So what was that? That's down. So who is Emma?
Well, we're going to try to answer that today, I hope, in the next 30 minutes. But thank you for having me. I'm really excited. I'm not great at talking about myself, so we'll go slow. I will probably forget something, but I'm so stoked to be here. I'm currently in my friend's house because I don't really have Wi-Fi where I live right now. I live on a ranch in Longmont, but I'm 24 years old. I own my own business. We own a family ranch, so we have horses and cows, and the cows are beef cattle, but we also use them for like clinics for our horse business. So we train horses. We do lessons for adults and kids, and it's supposed to be a very inclusive space, while still being able to offer all the amenities of a normal boarding and training facility here in Colorado. And I started my business a while ago, like in late 2021. And I currently live on the ranch as well because that's like our family property. So we moved there when I was 3.5 years old, and I'm adopted from California. And I'm a transracial adoptee, meaning I was born into a family where my whole family is white, and I'm the only person of color in my family. But they adopted me at birth, so I've been, with my adoptive family my whole life. I don't know any other family than them. So that's been a pretty interesting kind of thing to navigate in my life. But yeah, I stayed in Colorado and grew up going to school here in Boulder County. I went to CU Boulder, and now I'm just ranching and fly fishing. So yeah, that's the little part about me. So
wow, that's a lot. What did you major in at CU?
I did integrative physiology at CU. So I was pre-med, and I actually worked as a firefighter and was an EMT throughout school. And they did like a tuition reimbursement. So I was able to get help for paying for school if I worked on the fire department. But I mainly did medical. So I worked on the ambulance. So I thought it was pretty sick. And then COVID hit, and I worked the first part of COVID. And I was like, I really need to graduate. I can't just keep, riding around and playing EMT. So I don't do that anymore. I still hold my certification because I think it's pretty important to have, working out in the outdoors, especially in the backcountry. But for now, I've turned my love into helping people from my medic work into my horses and fly fishing business. So yeah.
So you said you were a firefighter, so you're a wildland firefighter then, not a structural firefighter?
Here in on the Front Range, you have to be qualified. You have to be certified in both. So you do your Wildland Academy usually after you do, or I guess it depends on the department, but it's a shorter academy than your structure academy, and you're also required to be an EMT in the state of Colorado too. If you're going to work on a fire department, you hold your EMT certification, or an EMR, which is emergency medical responder, which is like, it's like the step below EMT. So yeah, it was a great job to like begin my adult life, I think. So yeah.
Sure, you've lived the life already. So what brought you to the life of horses, cows? I know you said you were adopted and brought there, but how did this whole thing happen as far as horses, cows, and fly fishing? Save the fly fishing for last, okay? Let's start with the horses and cows.
Okay, so
maybe I should put my hat back on. Okay,
yeah, put it back on. I should have brought mine. I don't have.
See, I got this is my dress hat too. This is not just
That's a fancy hat. I'm feeling special. But no, yeah, I started doing the ranch work when my family moved from California to Colorado. So I was 3.5, and we had lived in San Francisco until I was 3.5, and then we moved here. And I have an older sister who's my parents' adopted child, or not adopted, biological child, and she's 7 years older than me. So we kind of had like a big enough age gap between us that we never really fought. She was kind of already an adult by the time I was a teenager. So we grew up on the property that I live at now, where I have our family ranch, and my parents started a horse boarding business where people would bring their horses into our property and then rent a space. And so that's where I started to learn the business of horse boarding and training, because my parents did it. And so I was pretty much raised always taking care of a horse. And so that is very normal to me. And that has been the consistent kind of thing that I've done throughout my whole life. So I don't think, fly fishing comes and goes, but every morning, every night, I have to go see the animals and take care of them. So that is one thing that has kept me from getting into trouble. Two, I've always had some sort of, prior knowledge in animal care. So I was always able to find a job if I needed one. And then eventually I started in show jumping. So I rode English, and, it was kind of terrible. People were really racist in that kind of show circuit that I joined. But it was a great start to getting to learn how to work with horses, especially in that discipline. And then I turned 13, and I was so burnt out from show jumping and competing that I switched to Western riding, which is what I still mainly do now. And it was in that Western riding that I learned all about horsemanship. I trained my first horse. His name is Drifter. He's on my Instagram a lot. But he's half Mustang. So that's when I first started getting into Mustang training with my friends at the time in high school. And yeah, from there, I think I bought my first horse by myself when I was 17, and I didn't tell my parents. Don't do that if you're wondering. That's not a good thing to do. And then eventually from there, I started growing, the amount of horses that I had, because I turned my horse career into a career, I guess. I turned it into a business. The animals had to pay for themselves. So that was really how I continued my horse work, started the business. I really wanted a place for people to go to who looked like me, especially in the Western industry. I think the agricultural and Western industry is a lot further behind than I think the outdoor industry. So it's interesting to compare those parallels, because I work in both. So it's almost like refreshing to be in the outdoor industry. It's not where we want it to be right now, but I think it's further along in being more progressive than the Western industry. It's pretty cool to be in both of them, and to work in both, and also create space in both of those and see the different obstacles in those two industries. So, yeah.
Well, that's pretty amazing. Yes, it's not like when you bring a horse home, it's not like mommy had followed me home, kind of, with a kitten or a puppy.
Wish.
You got to or a fish in a fish bowl.
Yeah.
look what. Yeah, it's in the trailer. Go out and take it. Um, so then you just naturally got into that, and it was interesting when you were talking about the equestrian jumping, and you used the word racist, and that's a tough place to be, when you are the one or the only one.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing to be lonely in a crowd.
Yeah, it was definitely my first experience because I didn't really play sports growing up. Like I go to the gym a lot and I coach, weightlifting now and stuff, but I didn't go to schools that had like team sports. So the horseback riding was my main sport, and I was so serious about it, but it was just so hard because I stuck
Mm-hmm.
out like a sore thumb.
Mm-hmm.
And the same for the Western when I moved into Western riding too. But it, you know, I think I was like 6 to 12 was when I was doing the English writing. And it was just it was brutal. It was you need a lot of money to show. And then you also need, a lot of money that goes into your horses. And it was just a lot. And I didn't feel like I was welcome, I think. And I also think I was just too young too. I was too young to understand any of that. And so by the time I got to Western writing, I was a teenager, which is not better, but I think I had more of a brain at the time to understand and be more comfortable in my abilities in that sport. So,
Well, I
yeah,
struggle at 74 to have a brain, so totally
that's
understand.
okay.
Uh, so let's talk about your transition into, or if it was just an automatic thing to go from that and adding on then fly fishing. How did that happen?
Yeah, so I guess I like tried to write out a diagram because I've never really thought about, my fly fishing career and my horse career, and they're now like so intertwined right now, but they were always separate before I started a business. Really, before last year they were always separate. So the horse stuff was always just a part of my life. The fly fishing stuff was something I had to work really hard to be good at and to be a part of. And I was lucky enough that I started really early. So I first started fly fishing when I was, pretty little. My dad was an angler, so I got to get his old, sage rods, and I think it was a two-piece RPL sage rod. And so I learned on that. I didn't know what I was doing. I would like splash around in the river and get in my dad's way and get yelled at. But eventually, I think in high school, I had a couple other friends who fly fish too. And so on our lunch break, we would go to Boulder Creek. We went to school like right on CU campus. Our high school is right next to CU campus. So on our break, we would go to Boulder Creek and we would just, try to fish. And I think I'm young for my grade, so I was the last person to get my driver's license. So I'd always be like, hey, let's go fishing and try to rally all my friends. But when I turned 16, I got my driver's license and I was like, I gotta get good at this. Like I need to actually catch fish. And I didn't catch fish for like 8 months, I think, like 6 to 8 months. Because I would just go up to a random river like South St. Marine in Lyons, Colorado, try my best to catch a fish. Never really worked. And then one day it just clicked after practicing for enough time. And from there, what really got me into the industry was at the time I was going to a high school that you needed to do like a big senior project for to graduate. And I was like, what should I do that takes the least amount of effort? This is going to sound bad, but it was fishing. I was like, I'm pretty decent at fishing. If I just try to make my project about fishing, then, the 120 hours of studying that you would have to do for your projects would go by really fast because I would be fishing. So that was my logic behind that. And I actually ended up joining Trout Unlimited, the Greenbacks affiliate group, for that project. So I started doing conservation-based fly fishing, and that was when I was first really introduced into meeting other anglers, meeting leaders in the community through Trout Unlimited. And I started when I was 16, so now I'm 24, and so I've had all this time to network and for people to know me and get to know me. And since then I've been going to, the Trout Unlimited meetings and the Rendezvous, and now I'm working on their diversity and equity committee at the state level. So it's a pretty awesome place to be right now. I started early, and that got me to where I am now. So I'm very thankful about that. And in terms of the guiding, I decided to start guiding back in 2020, I believe. So I started at Lincoln Hills Cares. That's where I met Austin. I don't know if Austin's watching. Shout out to Austin. But he was up there too. And a lot of other amazing black anglers, black and brown anglers were up there. And so I was like, oh my gosh, there's like other people who look like me who are doing this, who are teaching kids that look like me as well. So that's when I realized that there could be space for what I like to do in the things in the industries that my hobby is aligned with. So I started guiding with them. I worked a little bit with Uncharted Outdoors Women, and then I moved into working with Budge's Lodge, which is a backcountry hunting and fly fishing lodge up in the mountains. And that's where I got to combine my love of horses with fly fishing, because they have horses up there. They pack folks into the river with their gear, and it's pretty much like the coolest job ever. But I get to do that now, and I do the guiding simultaneously with my horse business as well back home. So yeah.
So how does one book a trip with you? What do I have to do?
What you can really just message me on Instagram, and I can send folks the right details. For a fly fishing trip, it would be through our lodge, so through Budge's Lodge, and then I would help someone book a trip, because we get like shop commission as well, like a fly shop, which is pretty awesome. That's a really cool opportunity that the owner gave me. And then for any trail riding or horseback riding lessons or horsemanship lessons, if you want to come do like a cattle drive or pet some horses, pet some cows, that would just be through me. So yeah.
So just reach out to Emma Brown Trout.
Yep.
Yeah, very clever.
Yeah,
I like that. So that all sounds awesome. So do you have a favorite story about your experiences thus far?
About like anything
having to do with you being you outdoors.
I feel
You've been bucked off a horse lately, or something?
Have I been bucked off a horse lately? Oh my god.
That would make for a funny story or an interesting story.
I will say, I saw Elon posting about our talk tonight, and the one time that he came up to visit at the ranch, I fell off my horse because I was riding bareback, and just being, too
of Emma's and also Lincoln Hills. To back up, you did mention that Lincoln Hills. For those who do not know, you want to just real brief say what that is?
Yeah, so it is it's a historical place. So I don't know the best way to describe this, but it was the first black-owned resort for black folks.
Yes.
West of the Mississippi. Right. And it was one of the first places that people could hop on a train from Denver and go right up into the mountains and be in a resort with people who looked like them. People were part of their culture and could learn from other, anglers and folks that were a part of their culture. So
that's crazy. That is so awesome.
It's amazing.
It is amazing.
Cool place up there. So
yeah. Good for them. Good for you. And again, it offered you an opportunity to meet people like Eland and Austin and Ashley, and other folks.
Yeah.
Right. And who look like you. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So a couple deeper questions here to say, as we go real here in the time that we have left. What's it really like being you? Being a woman of color, doing what you do, where you do it, as you do what you love to do. What's that like?
I'm gonna say it's hard. It's hard for me, I think, because I'm young and I have not developed my full confidence in who I am and what I'm doing. I know what I love to do and I know I'm good at it, but I still struggle a lot with identity. And that's something that I'm very open about. And I think it's a journey and it's a process. And I'm so lucky now to be surrounded by people who look like me in the places that I work. But that, it's new for me. My whole family is white. And they never, they just, the smallest things like my hair growing up, I'm Polynesian, so like I have like big hair, I'm a big person, and I just look a lot different from my family. So I think just general identity and where I feel most comfortable in the world is something that I'm still figuring out, just like every young adult. But I think with all the things I'm doing, it's definitely it's important to take a step back and go like, whoa, okay, what's happening? How am I feeling about this?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Emma, you're not alone in that one. Like I said, I keep referring to myself at 74. It's still something that we have to work on, process every day. It's not a destination, right? It's
Yeah.
a journey. Um, Let me ask you something. You made a comment along the way. It's the direct quote, I think, from you, and I just want you to
Yep.
elaborate just a bit. You said getting into fly fishing. I have to read here. Getting into fly fishing, feeling the pressure of navigating the industry as a young BIPOC person, and beginning to understand being me is enough. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think it's just going off of what we were just talking about, trying to understand that you don't need a space to feel, I guess, like, what am I trying to say? Trying to feel comfortable with the fact that there might not be a perfect space to feel welcomed all the time, and trying to understand that just being yourself is enough to be in that space. It's hard. It's such a hard process.
Yeah.
I'm pretty tolerant about it now, and I'm trying to be less tolerant about it, meaning I'm trying to stick up for myself when I need to and talk when I need to. But that has been a process, my whole, since I was 18, or since I've been doing this. But I think it's pretty true for other young adults who are Black and brown and are in an industry that's predominantly white or predominantly male. I think just the pressure of simply not looking like the rest of the people around you it's really hard. So I think just trying to be okay with like, okay, I'm here and that's what matters. I showed up, and I'm here to do what I love is the most important thing. And yeah, I think that's what I was trying to express when I wrote
Yeah, that you did a great job. I read that and thought I need to ask her about that, because you are enough. We all are enough, but we do end up in situations where it feels like we're being pulled in all different directions.
Yes.
Well, for those who do not know, Emma is on the leadership team of the Ubuntu Fly Anglers Network, and we're just thrilled to have you, and I get the pleasure just calling you up and chatting whenever you're in your truck going back and forth to the ranch, or whenever
Yeah.
you have reception. And I always treasure the time. Truly, Emma, you're an amazing person, and I hope that UFAN provides a place where you can be you,
Yes.
and we can be we,
Yeah.
as if that's right. You know what I mean? In community, because hopefully we got one another's back on doing what we'd love to do, because we all have those lived experiences, and we need people in our lives to, which I hope you can do that. Feel free to call up and say, man, can you believe what a person said to me today? I can
Yeah.
hardly believe it myself, because we all have those times.
Yeah. I forgot to mention this, but I feel super lucky because when I started my business, I called up all my friends that I grew up riding with. I was like, hey, you guys want to join? You want to work for me? Like, and so we built a really amazing network, just from the kids that I grew up with, and trying to change the world in the way that we want to see it. So, yeah, I feel lucky that I have, the right amount of resources right now, and I feel super excited for the future of Ubuntu too. And I'm just looking forward to seeing what changes will happen in this industry going forward. I'm really excited. I think it wasn't like this back when I first got into fly fishing at all, and it wasn't like this when you first got into fly fishing.
No.
And so it's pretty amazing to be a part of it. I feel like it's a part of history that I'm pretty blessed to be a part of. So yeah.
Well, that's awesome. That's a good place for us to move on. I don't know if you can here in the background, I know it's close to time because my fish clock, let's see, that's a rainbow running upstream. I don't know if you heard that or not, with a screaming reel and splashing water. That's how crazy things are around my house. We had some wonderful comments. Person said, looking forward to catching up with you and fishing with you and talking horses. So
Yes.
I'm not sure exactly who that is, but I hope that comes true for you. And the work you do with getting kids out and getting them on horses, you and I have talked about that before. That can be so life changing, and it was life changing for you. And it, to actually be intentional about who we spend our time with outdoors, which
Yep.
is really another thing about UFAN is our mission is to be intentional, to make these relationships and to bring others along. And who knows where their lives might be, in the environmental work or just being a fly fisher, fly angler, and finding comfort in that. Because as you said, we know how hard it is. I did a lot of fishing in Colorado, and I mentioned to you once, woof, it was a lonely experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And well, it continues to be, which is why we want UFAN to do its thing. So if folks want to hook up with Emma, it's Emma Brown Trout, right? On Instagram, and drop her a message. That's how I got to know her. I dropped her a message, and she was crazy enough to respond. And then from then on, it's been a trajectory here in a wonderful direction. I really enjoy our time together. And so reach out to her. Emma, you're a superstar, and you know that. I believe that sincerely. You are a superstar, and thank you so much for being on the show. So thank you for listening, everyone. You can also watch each episode on our YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram at Ubuntu Fly Anglers on Instagram and UbuntuFlyAnglers.com on Facebook. You can also message me directly at UbuntuFlyAnglers@gmail.com. So thanks, everyone, for listening and watching. See you next time. Tight lines.